Spin it again.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what, I've heard people call, and I kind of like the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know, maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Henry. Welcome back to another edition of Real News. David Shine Thompson sitting across me there on the screen, on your screen in real life. He's much further away from me in this state, which is a sad thing, buddy. It's a very sad thing.
You're so far away, Grant.
You know what I'm saying, dude? But we got to do the social distancing thing. We got to do it right. We got to do it proper. How you doing this morning, buddy? He's doing well.
I feel so good. I mean,
so good.
I feel so good. I did the Wednesday night get extra sleep thing that I've been doing the past few weeks. Went to bed early on Wednesday night and it felt great.
Yeah,
got a lot of extra sleep. So, and I'm already in cup number 2 on my Gadsden Flag coffee cup.
Nice.
I'm feeling great.
Dude, that's very apt for today's discussion.
I'm ready to jump right through this screen and give all you people a hug. That's what I'm ready for.
I'm sure you've seen all the protests and stuff going around the country, man. Your cup fits very well with what some of the stories we're going to talk about today.
Didn't
right?
that thing just kind of turn on a dime?
Dude.
You know, we were just living our lives and now everybody's mad.
It did turn on a dime. We're getting into it now, but I'm telling you, man. By the way, you see the baby face freshly shaven again, man. You know, like I'm sure this happens to you,
You're
Sean.
so health conscious.
What? That's
you
right.
Know?
It is, yeah.
That's what it is.
It's health consciousness.
You're just trying to do your part. You know?
That's right. I'm trying to do my part.
Just trying to do your part.
Just spread it to my dog or something, right? No, man. The hair, you know, the beard hair comes in and right around this area for me, right around the goatee area, because it comes in so coarsely. Mr. Henry's got some thick beard hair. I'll tell you that much, man. Comes in so coarsely, I can't deal with it. And it's just like it's aggravating. It drives you insane. So it had to go. Get out of there, buddy.
Are you having trouble getting your expensive beard oil so that you can manage it from the company? Right. Are they making hand sanitizer now instead of beard oil?
They've shifted all operations to the hand sanitizer stuff.
Well, hey, good morning, everybody. It's been an interesting week, and I think we're starting to see the tension rise. We're doing our best audience appreciation in the nation.
Now.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, dude, there's no such thing as getting ahead of yourself. Best audience in the nation appreciation segment right now. If you're out there, if you're listening back as well, tell us how you're doing in the comment section. I actually go back and check these comments as well too. We obviously get updates to see, when these videos are commented on. So I'll go back and check. Let us know how you're doing, what you're struggling with. If you need some prayer requests, concerns for anything, if you need some help with anything, let this community help you build this community out with each other. If you have any businesses that are trying to innovate, trying to stay alive, need some help with things like that, let us know. Bring it to our attention. We'll bring them on the program, bring it to the attention of the rest of the Real News audience as well. Obviously, Sean, myself, still thankful for being employed out here, trying to do the good work in Tennessee, trying to do the work, doing the good work for the nation here, man. Still fighting some causes. With that being said, one cause in particular we could certainly use everybody's help on. You'll see at the top of the show notes this morning. Right underneath the title of the program here, you'll see help fight the Nashville property tax increase. And I actually included the response that I received from a city council member as well. So it's, look, I'm telling you, even if this is an automated response, let's say somebody took the time to write this thing out, to go in and read my email and have to respond accordingly to what that email is. It's actually a fairly interesting response to this property tax increase as well. Really puts in a different sort of narrative as to the council members are struggling with this decision, y'all. I mean, seriously struggling with this decision, trying to figure out what else do we cut? We've cut a lot. Are we down to essential spending at this point? And my assessment here is, can a Nashville property tax increase, if that does pass here, which I'm going to be completely honest with the audience here, Sean, Mr. Henry speaking only here, myself doing the third person thing. Yes, if this thing passes in Nashville, all right, it's somewhat likely that this could go around the rest of the state. Not speaking on behalf of any other company or organization. I'm just saying here, my personal feeling is what's set in Nashville might set a precedent for some other city mayors to start getting the bright idea of like, hey, they passed it over there. They're dealing with their situation in that way. Why don't we start dealing with this situation here similarly? All right. And the property tax increase, I feel comfortable saying this because this has been reported by multiple outlets so far, Tennessee Star being one of them, if you want to follow along. They're talking close to a 40% property tax increase. 40% property tax increase. May not be that high. It could be something much lower. Once we get to the end of this date here, once we get to the end of this campaign, it could be much lower or nothing at all. Now, where I'm coming from on this personally is, look, a property tax increase is what it is. All right. It's something that they may consider in Nashville for other given reasons. I will say to their credit, mandatory spending increases, or not mandatory spending increases, but cost of life, if you will, increases in salary for, say, some metro workers have been denied for yet another year. All right, so somebody up there is trying to have some semblance of fiscal responsibility, if you want to. And I've said this before. I truly do believe this. The Mayor John Cooper up there, he's a better fiscal guy, my opinion, Shine, than maybe a Kincannon would be in Knoxville. And I say that again, only to set a stage for if a guy that at least understands the notion of fiscal responsibility. I'm not saying he does that, but he at least understands that. I heard the guy speak on 3 separate occasions during his campaign. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to how to spend money and what you probably shouldn't be spending money on. He gets it. He at least understands the rhetoric. Kincannon, I don't necessarily know if she's up to much speed as a Cooper would be on that. Now, here's what I mean by that, buddy. If a Cooper is considering this, you better well know that some other folks might be considering this. And everybody in this state is dealing with the exact same stuff that Nashville is to an extent, okay?
Well, I mean, look at what just happened in Chattanooga.
You're right. That's what I'm saying, buddy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
right?
And everybody's dealing with, like unemployment and major anchors of the community that provided a lot of tax revenue struggling and will continue to struggle. So everybody's kind of looking at a couple different things that they're going to have less revenue. You know what I'm saying? So any budget projections that they've done over the past few years are squat. Any plans they've had over the past few years, which Nashville, I'm sure, had many, right? Considering their exponential growth over the past few years, one of the largest growing cities in the United States as far as people moving there. I'm sure they had lots of plans for how to spend 100 years worth of money.
Yeah, man.
Because they were just seeing dollar signs, more tax revenue, and all that is gone. And I'm sure if you're the budget person, one of the first things you do is we got to get more coming in. That would be a reaction if you'd worked in business or something like that, or even if you'd worked in government before. But I don't know if the right way to get more tax revenue is to increase the rate. I don't know if that's the best idea.
Cut some wasteful spending, right? Yes. Exactly,
well,
man.
or borrow and keep rates low, right? Keep the property tax rate low, keep it low so people can when the economy turns back on, when all that happens, even in the transition period, which might take over a year, might take a year for things to get back to normal, to get back to woo in Nashville. Might take a minute to get back to those kind of parties and things people were doing. But keep the property tax rates low so businesses don't leave. Keep the property tax rates low so people can keep more of their money, pay more employees, things like that, and maybe your revenue that you had will come back quicker. But I have a feeling that Nashville is thinking about a property tax increase because they can't borrow without one. Maybe they don't you know what I'm saying? Maybe their bond rating stinks.
But here's a little bit of what Shine is talking about, okay? I don't have these stats directly in front of me, so I can't quote the exact number. But think about it this way, Shine, okay? Haven't we heard for the last couple of years, if not the last decade or so, that Nashville's like the hip up-and-coming city? It's the hot place to be. what do we have, 100 people per day they were saying moving here during the hot times? Well, obviously, if that's true, what that says to me is you're inevitably going to have a revenue increase from property taxes if that many people are moving here, correct? I mean, I don't have to be an economics major or have a in-depth understanding of economics to understand that that's probably what's going on. And this has been confirmed to me by other council members saying we've had a substantial revenue increase from the property taxes that we're getting just by more people moving here. So I think what Shine is saying is, what are you doing with that money? I mean, what's happening to that stuff? Did you really just spin yourself into a hole so problematically that, is that even a word, problematically? It is now, Shine. Did you really do it in such a problematic way?
Let's go to the judges.
Let's go to the judges.
Yes, yeah. The judges say you're good, Grant.
Did you do it in such a problematic way that now you're trying to make up for some of the problems of the past? Because granted, we are in a serious situation where in Nashville we had a tornado coupled with one of the worst, if not the absolute worst, unemployment situation in my lifetime, for sure. And obviously, what they're trying to look at is figuring out, what do we do? How do we deal with some of these things? And all Mr. Henry is saying here, third person again, I do that just to specify this is me speaking, not on behalf of anyone else. This is just me speaking. I do that just to say, what I would think we should probably do first is have a very serious, pointed conversation and make sure that everyone is on the same page. Are we cutting as much wasteful spending as possible? Have we had that conversation fully vetted out? Right?
Yeah,
have we done everything we possibly can do to cut out every bit of spending that we don't necessarily need right now? If not, then considering another property tax increase is possibly not the best thing to do. And Sean, let me just do this real quick, and then I'll let you comment here. I just want to show people how easy it is to find this. If you want to help us out here, if you think that Mr. Henry is correct, that this may be coming to your city too. You're seeing my screen right now at the top of this Real News page here. It's the thing that's pinned to the top. Real easy to find here. Do Shine and I a favor. Click this little ad right here. Obviously, Nashville considering, right? Click this little ad. Goes directly into this thing where you can fill out the information for yourself. Has the letter language right here that you can see. First, last name. Email that stuff. Send it to your person. And I'll tell you, at the top of the show notes, I actually received a response. I'm telling you, when we asked you guys to
let me ask
action,
a question. When you say send it to your person, you mean
your
council
send it
member?
to a person. If you're send it to a person, it goes to a council member. I presume if you're in the Nashville area, based upon the zip code you place in, it goes to your council member. So if you're outside, though,
I'm like, why are you going to send it to my fiance? She's my person. She doesn't even want a property tax increase. So it'll go to the people that need to hear it. That's where it'll go.
The people that need to hear it, exactly.
That's right. The decision makers. That's where it'll go. Man, what a service! What a service,
dude! And I'm telling you, man. Look, I'm being completely sincere when I say this again, bro. When Sean and I ask you to take part in some action that's going on, I truly believe that is the quickest way, not the quickest way, but the approach that we take to getting words directly to these people's face, I've never seen an infrastructure do it better than the way that we're taking part of right now. I'm telling you, you could get signatures all day long and try and walk these signatures up to someone. Yes, that's effective. Making phone calls directly to these people is effective. But the infrastructure that we have set up right now for some of these things we're asking you all to take part in, to say that it actually makes a difference would be a vast understatement, a vast understatement. And if you trust anything I've ever said before, I promise you in that these people are hearing, they're seeing, they're responding. Okay. I've received a response email already. Now, whether or not it's an automated response, I don't care, Shine. The fact that they had to read through that email, respond, click, and send something back to me saying, like, and you'll see the response in the show notes. It's up there for you. Dear Mr. Henry, thank you for your email. I appreciate your interest in Davidson County's tax rate, yada, yada. It's like, you better believe I'm interested in anybody, because even if I don't live there, I'm a little bit fearful it's coming over here, man. And Tennesseans, buddy, we don't like our taxes, man.
No, man. We've kept property taxes low for a long time. And I still think that this is a knee-jerk reaction to say, what about a property tax?
Right.
I feel like it's a way to say we're dealing with the issue. It's a way to maybe get an extension on payments, interest payments, if you're a Nashville government, saying if you can just hold off a little bit on on us paying back our loans for just a little bit, because we're going to do a property tax. Who knows what the behind-the-scenes stuff is? And I guarantee you it has a lot to do with bond rating and stuff like that. I doubt it has to do with the actual budget, Grant. I doubt it, because I bet there's a lot of wiggle room. If you have that many people moving to the city, they were going to have to build roads and lights and adding electrical stuff, and you know what I'm saying. Lots of expansion, a lot of debt, probably saying we're going to make money in the future because all these people are moving here, but we have to provide essential services, so we have to build out in hopes that the tax revenue will catch up, and they had every reason to believe that it would. Now, my question is not as much on the budgetary side, because I really doubt that there's a lot of wiggle room. I really do. I bet most of it is interest payments and employee pensions and things like that, like stuff that is not cuttable. But this is what goes to show you, like, how important leadership is in your local municipalities. It's very, very important during good years for your city mayors, your county mayors, your county commissions to be focused on paying down debt, improving bond rating, making the government itself, having a rainy day fund, things like that. If anything, this crisis has shown that your local leadership is super important, because if you have an emergency like we're having right now.
Yeah, dude.
If your local politicians have not been doing the real work to make sure that they are a strong government that can handle and weather storms well, then you'll see it. And I think you're seeing it in Nashville. I think in Knox County, while Tim Burchett was here, they paid down a lot of debt. They improved the bond rating. And they added to the rainy day fund. Then they specifically said, hey, times are good right now. They got a lot more stuff on the tax rolls. That was important for them to get things off of. If the county owned them or something like that, they would sell it to somebody and get it to start making money for the county. So it's so important. And I really encourage you to hit up those county, council members in Nashville, especially if you live in Nashville or live in is the county government that's considering it, Grant? Because they'll remember
the Nashville city government.
Nashville city government, because they'll remember you if you send them an email. Even this kind of thing, that's a petition signing. They will remember their city government, and you want to establish that relationship, and you want to let your voice be heard. So go to Real News, and Grant said there, it's like one of the first few articles. Check it out, sign it. And be ready for the next one, because we're going to be letting you know how you can take part in your government. And I hope that we've laid out why that's so important, because there are real world consequences like we're seeing right now with possibly a tax increase in Nashville.
And I'm telling you, man, this is why I love us building this community in the way that we have right now. This is why I love that we always drive the program from the comment sections of the show. And I always say that this truly is the greatest audience in the nation, man. And it's a true community-driven program here. Sean and I actually even working on a way to bring you guys onto the stream with us, to bring you guys into this community. Not just to listen to us every morning, to be an active participant more than just the comments. If that's something you're into, let us know. Here's something that Eric's saying, that the reason why I bring that up is because, dude, we have some outright folks that get it in this program here. Eric says it's pretty basic economics. You can't spend more than you have. It's not just a Nashville problem. We have a spending problem here too. We've had a money problem in the first place. So now the tax dollars are drying up. Tourism is the biggest moneymaker we have here, with hotel taxes being the highest in the nation. They're going to get desperate. The state has little concern about the massive amount of people in jobless at the moment, because they're going to have to get help with unemployment too. And the state gives out money on the backs of workers. It's the only way they can do it. Not surprised about this, he says. In fact, a lot of people called it. Yeah. This is what I'm saying, bro. This is why this community is so awesome. A lot of people did call it. He's got it from the very beginning. He says, look for more unnecessary taxes coming up. And I'm telling you, man, look, let me put a little bit of bright note on some of this here for you, Sean, too, okay? So for everything that you can point to for Tennessee where maybe we're getting it wrong or maybe we need some help with stuff, I'll tell you right now, Tennesseans in general, they get it. They understand what's going on. They want to hold their politicians accountable. Transparency is paramount, bro. It's one of the things that we're concerned about the most in this state. And because of that, we have some of the best people in this state doing the job. I promise you that, man. I've been in politics for a very long time in several other states. We have some of the best liberty champions in this state doing it and doing it right. To that effect, man, we actually heard Governor Lee come out yesterday and make this statement about how we're now opening up drive-through testing across the state for COVID-19 testing, regardless of what your symptoms are. Now, I say this is so important, Sean. Let me put this in a national context as well. We just heard yesterday about President Trump coming out, and where's this? Yeah, ABC headline right here. Coronavirus government response updates. New guidelines for reopening the country coming Thursday, Trump says. That is today, obviously. Today, will we hear President Trump talk about these new guidelines? And one of the guidelines he mentioned yesterday is exactly what Governor Lee preempted him 2 days by. He said we need to have not just much more testing available, but testing regardless of traditional symptoms. Testing that can be drive-through on spot. Testing where you just flood the market with testing, bro, because more data is going to give us better modeling projections, and better modeling projections is going to give us the ability to find who may have this first and maybe get them in a situation where they don't infect other people, because the end goal for that, Shine, let me tell you, buddy, we just talked about this yesterday. The new tradable commodity of the future is trust. Trust in the institutions that will bring you not just those solutions, but trust in the institutions that let you figure it out yourself.
Yes.
Trust in the institutions that trust you to do the right thing. Trust in the restaurants. They're going to be taking the active steps to open the economy sooner rather than later, so we can all get back to work, buddy. Here's the governor's address directly, so I can give some context to this, okay? Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, this is coming directly from his tn.gov website here. You'll see that in the show notes. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced free drive-through COVID-19 testing will be available for any Tennessean, regardless of traditional symptoms, as the Unified Command Group ramps up an aggressive effort to expand testing capacity across the state. Quote, he says, as we look to reboot our state's economy, we have a greater understanding of how this virus is operating in Tennessee, and expanding our COVID-19 testing capacity allows more Tennesseans to have improved access to testing, which will empower citizens to make informed health decisions. Dude, all of that language for me is just laden, soaked with this idea of, if you can get it right, individuals, for the sake of individuality, I know you can do this for yourselves. I believe in volunteerism. I believe in voluntarism. I believe in you being able to do this because you're smart people out there. Let me make this statement real quick, Sean, and I'll kick it to you to tell me if I'm wrong and maybe read some comments here. Governor Lee,
you're wrong.
Sorry. Governor Lee has received a lot of flack so far, but by and large, man, in comparison to the rest of these states across the country, I believe, and I'm not trying to grandstand here. I'm really trying to ask this question because this is where I'm saying I truly believe he's done as good of a job as he's possibly could do to weigh this strange line between how do I listen to my medical experts and how do I not use the power of government to force/coerce people into doing something that if I push too hard, they're going to do the exact opposite. Because that's exactly what we've seen. Dude, look, I got this clip coming up here in a second of all
best example of that is masks. Don't go buy masks. And then everybody bought masks because they're like, oh, the government's saying don't buy masks. That means we should buy masks. Because I think people are starting to understand that in general, at least right now, this may not be a forever thing, but there's a lot of lack of trust in the government. Not enough to create social unrest or anything. But when the government says don't buy masks, everybody went and bought masks to the point where nurses and hospitals were having trouble getting them for only a while. That's over, by the way. There's plenty of PPE. I was listening to a New York doctor today. But the point being, that is a tough balance when you've had a government that over the past 15 years has shown to be liars in a lot of cases, proven liars, especially on the federal level. Not necessarily the people that are in office right now, but in some cases, the people that are in office right now. But it's just been a feeling that I think has grown over time. I think John Huntsman said it best when he ran for president. This is all the way back, I think, when John McCain was running, said that the biggest deficit problem we have in this country is the trust deficit, not the monetary deficit. And he said that a long time ago. What was that, in 2008? And I thought it was the most pointed thing that was said during that whole campaign cycle. I think even more than the stuff that Barack Obama got famous for, the hope and change stuff, because it's true and it's being reflected. It's never been more obvious than during this crisis.
Right.
Nobody trusts the government. Nobody, not wholeheartedly anyway. They want to believe it, I think, but they don't trust them on logistical issues.
I mean, that's something that my parents sort of eloquently enlightened me to the other night, man. You want to know where Mr. Henry's quasi-intelligence comes from? That's a DNA thing, dude. That's the parents. They straight up told me the other night too. That's what they're starting to think now too. It's trust is that commodity of the future. Trust is what's going to get me out to drive business activity. Trust is right now in the economy being opened up of trusting me to do the right thing. Trust in general is something, and it's awesome too, man, because it's not necessarily something you can buy. It's not something you can purchase. It's not something you can fake. All right, and that's why I'm trying to give Lee a little bit of credit here. Again, he has some things he needs to be criticized for, and importantly, he has some things he needs to be held accountable for as well. Absolutely. All right. But let me show you this portion of this video right now. Compare what's going on in Tennessee right now. I know some people are feeling it this way, but compare what's going in Tennessee right now with how they're protesting in North Carolina, Michigan, and a few other states going on currently, and think to yourself like, dude, Michigan has some bad numbers. I get it. But the way that they're shutting down stuff across the rest of the country is it's like, I don't know, bro. Am I going out too much on a rail to say that like they're treating their people a little bit like children? A little bit like children? Let me play this clip and you guys tell me.
I think the people in Michigan at least think so.
Right?
Of COVID-19. Demands to reopen local economies are growing louder. This crowd gathered at Kentucky's Capitol, chanting facts over fear, protesting the governor's restrictions.
There's some noise in the background. We do have some folks up here in Kentucky today, and everybody should be able to express their opinion that believes we should reopen Kentucky immediately right now. Folks, that would kill people. It would absolutely kill people.
In Ohio, these protesters were pressed up against the State House door. And in Michigan, a parade of cars converged on the state capitol, voicing their opposition to the governor's extended stay-at-home order.
The right to work and feed my family.
Us people that are at a lower risk, I feel like we should have continued out our lives and continued working.
See, Michigan has from day one, I said that was going to be part of our problem. What that lady ended that whole thing with. From day one, I said part of our problem was going to be if we do these mitigating factors and we come over the peak of this curve, now all of a sudden people are going to look retrospectively into the past almost and say, look, I told you it was a farce to begin with. I told you nothing was going to happen with this to begin with, not accounting for the simple idea that possibly because of the extreme mitigating factors that we all went through is the reason why we're looking at only about 60 or 70,000 deaths right now. Now, pay attention to what I said there, though. Only about 60 or 70,000 deaths. Dude, that's still a terrible flu season. And we still could potentially push that into the 80s or 90s, even with some of these modeling data. So here's what I'm saying one more time, Shine, is you have to be able to keep two things in your head at once, okay? And you don't have to worry about some type of, cognitive dissonance going on where they're contrary opinions. They're not. You can say that mitigating factors work, and you can also say that it's probably not the best thing for the government to force me to do that. All right. Those are not mutually exclusive or incompatible notions to hold together. That's all I'm saying, Shine, is I think the most effective way to make this stuff work across the state is to be voluntary about it, to look out for your fellow man, to respect your neighbor, to respect the elderly people that may be more susceptible to this. That if casual suggestions come out from a government entity, don't force the government hand to make it a casual suggestion into something that you're forced to follow. Because if we can get this right now, man, I'm telling you, I think the best thing that comes out of this, the absolute best thing that comes out of this, I've been telling everyone this for the last couple of days, is if you look at that clip there, man, of a lot of these people protesting, and then obviously you saw some Trump signs or Trump flags or whatever else, and it might be a more conservative base that's leaning towards some of these protests, fine, okay? But in general, it seems that a lot of people in the country now are getting on the same page that maybe government is not best suited to give us all the solutions to our problems, okay? Maybe as far as it pertains to, say, expediency or getting something right the first time or dissemination of information or transparency or vulnerability or any of these things that we want to see in proper leadership, maybe government in general is not the best thing to give that to you. And even for some of my Democrat buddies that may or may not listen to the show, I don't even know if we have any, or anybody else that doesn't necessarily agree with my personal libertarian leanings, let me just put that out there one more time, okay? We've seen where the WHO has come from this stuff. We've seen where the CDC recommendations have constantly changed on a dime. We've seen where the CDC and the FDA regulations or restrictions, if I want to call them that, has caused a stall in the marketplace to get some of this testing to the marketplace in ways that we needed yesterday. Okay, I think that's all I'm saying here, buddy, is in general, this idea of a collective nature, a collective consciousness, a collective social contract theory that has grown out into this monster of what we call American government now. That monster is such a slow moving slug. It doesn't work. It's not effective, man. And I think that's generally what people are feeling across the nation is, I can't get behind that anymore. I got to have something else that works for me. I put a great article by a guy named Chris Littleton. He lives out in the Middle Tennessee area. I want to say Murfreesboro area. He works with the Chattanooga folks, I'll say, okay? Great guy, man. He follows local politics. An article that basically says a single blanket solution is not what we need right now. A county with people that has a 10th of the population of Davidson County probably doesn't need the same implemented solution as Davidson County. What works in Williamson County, dude, is probably not going to work in Rutherford County or something else in Tennessee. It needs to be case by case specific. It needs to be county by county specific, because I'm telling you, if we don't start looking at this exchange of what the economic needs are in relation to what the medical concerns are of that community, we are going to see dire, drastic outcomes, man. We've already seen in Knox County, dude. Mayor Jacobs told us yesterday that some of our Knox County folks in the healthcare system, our nurses and whatever else, some of our Knox County folks, they are going to other states. They're going to other states because we're not using them here, man. This idea of overflowing and overwhelming the healthcare system, it was a potential possibility. And if not for our mitigating factors, because we chose to do so, because the people that had the luxury to participate did participate in those mitigating factors, we stymied it off. We stalled it off, and we should be applauded for that. I'll end on this, though, Sean. I'm telling you, man, we either get this right for ourselves or government is going to figure out a way to do it for us in the future. And I'm hoping the one thing people take away from this, from these protests and everything else going on is, dude, that's not the right way to do it. That's not going to be the most effective solution. Let me figure it out for myself. Let me convince my neighbor, and then let my neighbor and me convince my fellow man, and then let it grow out from there. If it doesn't grow out from the power of the people first, you're never going to get voluntary compliance. I'll kick it to you for some response, Sean.
Let me say this. I think we have the space to do it that way because it's not, I understand that we've kind of reached over 10,000 people who've passed away from this, and I don't want to trivialize their deaths. But most, over half of those people live in New York. That's important. Half the people who've died live in New York. As we said yesterday, I think we said 579 people have been hospitalized in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Out of our millions of people who live here, I think we have the space to do voluntary stuff. People are not dying. Everybody doesn't know someone who's died. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the reason that people are feeling the danger from the job stuff, not the danger from the virus on a much larger scale. But I want to get to the comments here a little bit. By the way, great rant there, Mr. Henry. I loved it. Jive Perky in the chat room. I agree with trust being as big as the amount of uncertainty. That's what's causing most of our problems right now. And then he says, Flint, Michigan hasn't had clean drinking water. How come they haven't rallied for that?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's a similar problem, Jive. I think if people are not dying in the streets, if everybody doesn't know someone who died because of the drinking water, then that's not as big of an issue, right? It's a slow killer. It's you know what I mean? Or it's something that makes you sick over time. Humans are not good at non-direct threats. There's some double negative in there, but hopefully you get it. If the threat isn't right in front of you, then your fight or flight doesn't kick on. If your fight or flight doesn't kick on, you have normalcy bias, and you just want to pretend everything's okay. That's why people aren't protesting water. But the threat in Michigan, that's collective conscious, as Mr. Henry said there, that everyone's experiencing, and even nationwide, is the threat of not having enough money to feed your family. That's why people are protesting that. Eric Brannon in the chat says, I think they have, and no one listened. But you're right. If it was my community, I would be camped out at City Hall. And it says, don't forget the CDC's massive failure during H1N1 and Ebola. Forgive me if I'm skeptic, but when you think about it, how can anyone know anything? It's a novel virus, brand new in humans. It takes years to learn about new viruses. To brand a quasi-safe vaccine and working medication and treatment, look at viruses in the past. I do think also, yes, I mean, everything we are trying is a guessing game, but I keep coming back to, I really thought it was going to be a lot worse.
No, I hear you.
Around 600 people hospitalized in the state of Tennessee. I know there's people who be like, it's because we've done all these mitigating factors. I'm like, and is it though? I mean, everybody's still going grocery shopping. A lot of people are still going to work. A lot of people are playing soccer in the park.
Right.
I mean, I know the kids aren't in school, and a lot of people aren't interacting on a daily basis, but it's not like people are actually self-isolating. I mean, everybody watching, everybody who watches this video, I'm sure you've seen people that are not your family, that are not your roommate, not your partner. I'm sure you have. I mean, what about too, Grant? Everybody's getting food delivered. So there's one point of contact where somebody is touching, several people a night and grabbing a bag. It's touching a cook, it's touching a delivery driver, and then it's getting to you, and then everything in between. If the guy went to the gas station, he touches the gas pump, and you get everybody who touched the gas pump. So what I'm saying is, if it was going to spread like wildfire, like they said, if it was going to be just deadly, like they said, then we'd already be living in that apocalypse right now. And I know I'm not trying to seem, and tell me if I'm wrong, chat room, like for real, like I feel like it can't be because of the mitigating factors, because we've mitigated, but have we really? I think all we've done is we've decreased the amount of people that we touch every day, but we have not like eliminated it. And if this was airborne and stays on surfaces for 19 days and hospitalized 20% of the people who got it, which I also think is not a thing, then I don't know. I feel like it would be a lot worse. And I'm sympathetic to the people in Michigan, and I expect to see that replicated 100 times in 100 other cities over the course of the next 2 weeks, and we'll see. We'll see. And to your point, man, Judy was saying in Facebook a while ago when we were talking about that aspect of trust, okay? She was saying, well, I don't even know what to trust as far as it concerns death rates anymore. I don't even know what to trust as far as it concerns with the number of available testing or testing that's been done or positive or negative testing, whatever else. And I'll tell you, here's yet one more thing, bro. If people in real news haven't seen this clip yet, I'm pretty sure this is Brett Baer. Listen to this next aspect of trust that's coming out here that apparently, and look, just so you guys know that I'm being fair, okay, I won't bury the lead here. Let me actually show this. Well, I don't have this pulled up, so I'm gonna have to bury the lead. Just trust me when I say I'll pull this up. This was also reported by CNN. So in the show notes, I have a CNN link and a Fox News link, both reporting on the same story, just so you know that I'm not being biased coming from one source of Fox News. I just pulled a Brett Baer clip because it's interesting that this guy, it is Brett Baer, right on the screen right now, Sham? I can confirm that is Brett Baer of Fox News.
I can confirm, thank you.
I can confirm. I don't know him personally, but I have seen him on television before. So that is
find
Brett
it
Baer.
interesting that it's
definitely, in my opinion, the most talented person on camera at Fox News. I think he is easily the best.
In talking about trust, add this to it here.
Also have new information tonight that you heard John Roberts ask about the origins of the coronavirus. Multiple sources say this may be the costliest government cover-up of all time by China. The belief now, you heard the chairman of the Joint Chiefs asked about it, that the intelligence was inconclusive, but there is a growing belief that the COVID-19 virus originated in the Wuhan lab, not as a bioweapon, but as China's effort to find and deal with viruses to show the world China was as good as or better than the U.S. on that front. It's believed that the virus was bat to human, and then the human, patient zero, worked at the lab, went into the population in Wuhan, and the virus quickly spread from there. China, according to sources, moved quickly to shut down travel domestically from Wuhan to the rest of China, but did not immediately stop international flights from Wuhan. These sources say the World Health Organization was complicit from the beginning, helping China cover its tracks. And that is where we begin tonight. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts starts us off. Good evening, John. You asked about this reporting tonight, got something from the president, and obviously part of the reason why the president's coming down so hard on the WHO.
Yeah, there certainly has been a real change in tone from back in early February when the president described the WHO as some of the best and the brightest. Clearly, as this information begins to develop and is beginning to gain more traction now among U.S. officials, the president is changing his mind not only about the WHO, but about what happened in China. I asked him directly the information that you and I had discussed earlier today. He didn't really go down the road of a concrete answer, but he did suggest that he's looking at that, and that is becoming something that the federal government really wants to know a whole lot more about, Brett.
Shine. So you hear what I'm saying, right? I mean,
hold on. Before we even do the analysis of this video, I must say, poor John Roberts, his makeup person is definitely on quarantine. Did you see that spot on his face? That's never happening during real Fox News time. Poor guy. He looks so much older than he normally does. But anyway, so we're getting back to the Tom Cotton narrative. It's a little more less conspiracy theory, but it's also more believable than this virus was nowhere and then it was everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is a story that I can chew on, that someone was, I mean, I totally get that story. The story, the Chinese were trying to do better than America at virus stuff. I totally believe that. That seems totally believable. They're always trying to prove that they're not a worthless communist country that kills their own people all the time. They're always trying to, like, show people things that aren't, mobile execution vans and taking monks into ambulances, killing them and harvesting their organs. They're always trying to do stuff like that to make themselves seem like communism is so cool and everybody should do it and they should be the leader. They're always trying to do that. That is a totally believable story. Now, it's interesting that this narrative has taken from the beginning of January to now to be considered legit. This was there from the very beginning. I mean, this was there. Tom Cotton, and I'm not trying to give him like super amounts of credit on lots of stuff,
but he did call it that early. You're right. He was
he asked questions.
Yes,
he asked, and he did it in a very responsible way. I mean, he did it was it on the Senate floor or in a Senate committee? I believe.
Yeah, he skipped some of the impeachment trial hearing stuff to specifically talk to people about this, and he was called out for it. Obviously, he's looking like he knew what was going on now, but at the time, people were saying, like,
he looks like
you're outrageous. Like
now, for sure. And I think you'll find, whether we find out the truth about the original, how the virus originated, I think you'll see the U.S. government put all the blame on China, mostly. Because as I said yesterday, for better or worse, our federal government is doing everything they can do to keep blame off of them.
Off of the United States federal government.
Off the United States federal governments, particularly the executive, particularly Trump. If I could critique the federal government in any way, that would be my critique, is they're a little too worried about getting blame later. And it's a little bit obvious. Yeah. But to be fair, if any part of this story is true, there is no blame for our executive. I mean, who could blame anyone? I mean, if anybody had been president, they would have been dealing with a novel virus, so a new thing, something that hadn't been around before, and they're dealing with a response that this government has not had to any particular kind of issue in anyone's lifetime.
Right.
So, anyway, I think I don't. As far as trust goes, you said to add this to the trust conversation. I definitely do not trust the CCP, the Communist Party of China.
And that's what I'm saying, dude. It all goes back to the trust thing for me. Judy just said in Facebook a second ago, when will we start to learn from history instead of denying it? I don't know. Hopefully sooner rather than later. John made a very interesting comment in Facebook. John, if you're still listening, buddy, definitely tell me what you mean by this, because it sounds super interesting. I remember John always had this really unique way of just like sort of throwing out sort of teaser stuff that was just like super
I see that
in-depth.
In there. Yeah, John, elaborate. What's the Chan school?
Yeah, he says, look, I'd look at Harvard and the Chan school. That's why it's like following breadcrumbs with some of his comments. It's awesome, man. Anyways, but I'll say this, man. I'm going to make a comment that I think may be slightly controversial. Maybe I'll have to recant later on. I don't necessarily care at this point, though. I will say, coming into this stage of society right now where everything was offensive, it didn't matter what you say. There was only a few things out there, and everybody knows what I'm saying right now is the God's honest truth. There was only a few things out there that were deemed worthy of being made fun of. And by worthy of being made fun of, I mean that you could actually get away with saying something about it, or get away with critiquing, or get away with even saying openly out loud. And that stifling of conversation to begin with, that stifling of genuine exchange of ideas is what it becomes. That has serious ramifications beyond just annoying someone by calling them a snowflake, or beyond just being annoying because you are considered a snowflake, right? It's not just something that you gripe about on Facebook. It's not just something that you go listen to Steven Crowder for because he was the head of that landscape or that stage where he was calling out people's inability to reason, or to reason analytically, or to think about a logic problem, or to call out their own logical fallacies.
It was the right's version of shame culture. It was just the same weapon turned back against, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. It was just shaming them for not being able to reason.
But from the very beginning of this stuff, okay, nobody was allowed to call this a Wuhan virus. Nobody was allowed to cite that this potentially came from China somewhere. Nobody was allowed to deal with the source of the problem, i.e. the source of the information we were receiving. That's what I'm getting to, man. That is not just a problem of a microaggression. That is not just a problem of our inability to exchange ideas with each other. That has now become a problem for everybody in the world, dude. Everybody in the world, because if Tom Cotton, this is what you were saying before, Shine, if Tom Cotton from the very beginning was coming out there, and if you don't know this story, we didn't actually report on it much because it happened such a long time ago. Go look at what Senator Cotton was doing from day one. I'm talking like the end of December, beginning of January. The guy was skipping impeachment hearing stuff to go try and get people aware. And at the time, you're correct, Sean. All he knew was to ask questions, because what he was saying was, I don't know what's going on in China, but I'll tell you this much. I work with them all the time. I know what's going on there. I understand the business dealings they have. I have people in my office all the time talking to me and telling me you probably shouldn't trust some of that information that's coming out of there. You probably shouldn't trust some of the reporting, some of the numbers that they're giving you. If they say they don't have a problem, or let me be more clear, Tom Cotton says, if they're saying they do potentially have a problem, you can probably rest assured that that might be a massive problem that's already going on.
That's
and because
right.
of Americans' inability to deal with it, because you have to assert that it's China's problem, that it's China's issue of withholding information, now all of a sudden it has this racist element that's attached to it, or this xenophobic element that's attached to it. I don't even know what the proper term is. Either way, it's absurd. Either way, it's outrageous. And the fact that Tom Cotton was the only one out there not being taken seriously because we didn't know about it, because the WHO wasn't reporting on it, because the CDC wasn't following up, and in my opinion, because people were refusing to welcome that information into their lives. Now we got a major situation, right, buddy? Now we got a major situation where it's like, dude, so goodness gracious, man. So now you're telling me Fox News and CNN, I found the article. If you guys want to see it, I'll show it to you here in a second. I just pulled it up on the screen a second ago. CNN and Fox News are now reporting that apparently it was just gross negligence on behalf of China. They were trying to do some research to figure out what diseases are going around and trying to prove to the rest of the world that they know how to solve the disease problem too. Mainly because it's their wet markets that are producing a lot of this stuff. Let's be for real, man. But whatever. They were trying to figure out a way to solve that situation, to show that they can hang with the big dogs. I guess, man.
Well, hey, this goes to show that authoritarianism is dangerous. And not for the obvious ways. You know what I mean? The obvious ways being, imprisonment, the harvesting organ stuff that I talked about before. The unobvious ways is that when you have a crisis and people lie, people die. And that's a lesson we should take to heart, because I think everyone has a tendency to let some stuff slide in order to feel better about the authority that's making decisions for you. So in our government, I'm sure several times over the past month we've said, well, I'm not really okay with that, but it's what's needed right now, and I trust the government. Just remember that when you see authoritarianism, don't let it slide, because look how dangerous it can be. It can create a worldwide catastrophe. I think there's a good article that you can Google it. China's inaction in 6 crucial days, or just search China 6 crucial days, and it's about the 6 days they knew about human to human transmission. The 6 days they knew how quickly it could spread airborne and things like that, where they didn't shut down international travel out of Wuhan, because Wuhan has an international airport at it. They didn't let anyone know that the human-to-human transmission was possible for 6 crucial days, and that's how it got into Europe so bad. By the way, so we saved everybody from China, but we couldn't save everybody from Europe. In fact, they're saying that the New York strand, the strand that's going around in New York of COVID-19, through genetic testing, they found that it came through Europe, not directly from China.
Interesting.
So if we'd shut down travel to Europe at the same time we shut down travel from China, we might have missed this. But the reason it got into Europe so hardcore is when China shut down Wuhan, all the rich people in China went to Italy and France and the UK. Especially Italy. And the virus even mutated once it got into Europe because it spread so fast. But it's 6 crucial days. Very good article about China. Even if that other story you just talked about, even if that's just a rumor.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Even if that's just a rumor, there's stuff we do know. That we know that there were several days that they still allowed, tens of thousands of people to leave Wuhan and go to other places, and they were definitely infected.
Yeah, man.
And those decisions killed people. And the reason that they didn't restrict travel, in my opinion, was China's running, over leveraged. They borrow all the time. They live on borrow. And they live on borrowed money. I mean, they're kind of like us, but they can't print, And
yeah, I hear you.
That's a problem because you have low margins. I bet all those companies, especially the state-owned ones, have very low margins of profitability, and they couldn't. They tried to stop something that was not stoppable, and they lied to do it, and people died because of it. And I hope that they're held accountable. And I don't even say I hope, they will be. I mean, we've already seen. I think the WHO thing was a shot across the bow. And I hope they're held accountable, but I really don't want a hot war with China over a virus either. So I hope that there's a measured response.
And that's what I'm saying, man. I think you do have to make it a measured response. And I think a little bit of what's going on right now, buddy, and you've seen this started even. I don't know, man. You've seen it started even a little bit like last year, a year and a half ago, even almost of when some of these other elements like South Park and stuff have been picking up on sort of, say, I don't know. Let's call it communist overrun of our markets. I'll just straight up call it that, okay? Because Eric made a comment in Facebook a second ago saying like we've been communist sympathizers since World War II. I mean, if you guys don't know the amount of market ownership that China has over, say, Hollywood, go look that stuff up. It's outrageous. It's staggering to see how much of Hollywood that China has an influence on right now. I mean, it's so much to the extent that South Park, the episode, the show that Shine and I like them reference so much. I think their political satire is some of the most pointed in I don't know, television right now or in society right now. It's awesome. For almost an entire season, they pointed to the idea that you can't produce anything in Hollywood unless you get China's approval first. Like that's a straight up what they said. And Matt Stone and Trey Parker are the two guys in Hollywood that I know you can trust that they tell the God honest truth about what's going on out there sometime, right? These guys focus for a very long time on, if you want approval to put something out there in the American marketplace as far as it pertains to entertainment, you have to get it. You have to sign off on China first. Like, you have to get their approval first. That's what it comes down to. Go watch those episodes. It's fascinating. Back to your point, though, Shine. You need a measured response because you do not want to start a hot war with arguably the second largest economy and hinging on giving us a run for our money in the world right now.
I wouldn't want to start a war with Nicaragua.
Dude, right?
I mean, I wouldn't want to start a war with anybody. I mean, but especially, but I'm not worried about China's military prowess. I just don't want war. I mean, that's more than anything. I just don't want war.
I don't want a further destabilization of markets either. Goodness gracious, bro.
War is bad for business.
Yes, man.
Unless you're in a weird business,
John just said in Facebook the City Walk stuff. That's awesome. But here's what I'm saying, though. Okay, so I think a little bit of what you're seeing happening here, and this is not necessarily a Trump strategy. I think this is just a little bit of people coming up and waking up to the realization of maybe a bit of communist government influence, whether it's China or otherwise. Maybe that influence in American culture is not a great thing, okay? Because it's not just South Park pointing to how much China owns of Hollywood. It's also the NBA response that we saw a little while ago, where the Houston Rockets were not allowed to say something in protest against the Chinese government. If you want to know why, it's because the Chinese market for NBA is actually larger than it is for in America. If that seems outrageous to you, it is, first of all. And secondly, it's totally true. The money that the NBA gets from China grossly, absolutely overwhelms the money that they're getting from America. That is a cash cow on top of a cash cow, okay? So you can't bite the hand that feeds. Now, we've also seen in the tech world, Google is no longer giving updates to Huawei. All right, this is a little bit of executive order stuff, but it's a lot of voluntary stuff as well. The point I'm making, Shine, is we don't want a hot war response, but we've also seen this sort of like organic swell or uprising almost of individuals or certain industries responding in kind because they're just done with it, bro. They're just frustrated. And I'm telling you, man, we're talking about things that could come on the back end of this crisis response. We're talking about things that could come after this thing is done. I'm hoping, one, that limiting government overreach is one of these things because it seems like everybody everybody's a little bit frustrated with how slow government is to respond. If you don't want it to happen that way, give it to the private industry, dude. Give it to our private scientists that know what they're doing. Give it to our private medical field that knows what they're doing, okay? Don't give them extra red tape to walk through. Yes, make sure it's vetted properly and tested properly. And yes, trust the scientists when they say it's going to take me a year to a year and a half to figure this out right, and we'll get it done for you. But don't put extra roadblocks in their way. On the other hand, with this China stuff, bro, I'm hoping in the back end that comes out of this, some of this stuff is if we're hearing reporting from CNN now, that goodness gracious, this could be due to some negligence in a lab somewhere. It's like, it's what Shine's saying. We have not proven that yet, but nevertheless, some of this responsibility still rests on the shoulders of that country. And some of the responsibility still rests on the shoulders of the organizations that failed to report going forward. Finishing the show out here in the last 5 minutes, by the way, of some of the significant updates that, let's see, Washington Post is actually reporting on. This isn't Washington Post, sorry. It's ABC News, rather, that's reporting on. That came out of the stuff from the Trump department yesterday. Here it is. Trump and Pence say that new reopening guidelines for states is coming today. Details are following discussion with governors, so pay attention to that stuff, what's coming out today. Trump says the U.S. has passed the peak for new cases nationwide, while doctors have cautioned different areas will have varying peak times. Obviously, pay attention to that. Let's see. Trump threatens a unilateral adjournment of Congress in mid-pandemic if his judicial nominees are not approved. That is a major story. That executive power, by the way, of unilaterally adjourning Congress, that has never been used before. It is within the executive power to do so. I was actually reading up on this last night.
Isn't that a enumerated power in the Constitution?
It is, dude.
Yeah, it's not even like a law that was passed in 1920 or something like that, or 1880. Like this came stock with our government straight out of the box.
Right, dude. Yeah, straight out of the box. That's right, baked in.
Yeah,
that's great, dude.
Yeah, that's factory, bro. That came from the factory. That's not aftermarket.
It's not bootleg at all.
No, it's not. That's the truth, though. We got that from little legal history. We got that from our British cousins. The king or queen has had the ability to shut down the House of Commons or the House of Lords since its inception. And in fact, I think the queen shut down Parliament in Canada back in 2007. So, it's still a thing where executives shut down legislative branches for things. It just hasn't really been a thing in the United States.
By the way, Trace on Facebook says here, by the way, if y'all don't know who Trace is, he's my brother, but he's probably arguably the smartest dude I've ever met in my life, to the extent that it's intimidating sometimes, but he's a scientist. He's a neuroscientist. Just said that the view from the field is that the evidence is coming in, that it's coming from a lab in Wuhan isn't particularly strong. That's what I'm saying, dude. What's
the evidence? Is the evidence from the Chinese government?
Because I don't know. I'd have to follow these articles.
I know they're doing genetic testing. I know they're doing that.
Right.
But Trace, tell me if I'm wrong. Don't we have over 9 strains worldwide? And so theoretically, whatever was the original strain is not. I don't know. You get what I'm saying? It came from Wuhan and mutated into several different strains, and I think we even have several different ones inside the United States. But I don't know. All I was saying is that was a believable story.
That's what I'm saying.
It's more believable than someone ate a bat.
Yeah.
And they've been eating bats over there forever. And then just so happened they ate the one bat that had COVID-19, and his body was the right kind of physiological disease factory where it was able to change into something for humans and then be human to human transmit. It makes more sense that it was something in a lab that wasn't a weapon, because if it was a weapon, more people would be dead. But anyway, please continue.
Well, and here's what I was saying. To your point, exactly what you just said. We are now, if we've ever been before, we are certainly now in a day and age where narrative sells stronger than almost anything else, okay? A good story, a convincing story is something that's going to sell better than any amount of evidence that you could put out there. And I know how frustrating that is for someone like my brother. I know how frustrating that is for an empirist out there as well, but it's the simple fact of matter of where we currently sit. And part of that is the problem of the media, Shine. Part of that is the problem of now we've entered into the day and age where tradable logical fallacies are a commodity. And here's what I mean, okay? If you present me with some evidence of, I don't know, such and such says this, or CDC says this, or here's the death rate, or here's the transmission rate, or here's the rate of testing done, I can then reasonably find some other statistic that's, I don't know, possibly, arguably as good of a stat as you are bringing. And now all we're doing, Shine, is arguing the authority of the two stats that we're putting together, which in and of itself is a slight logical fallacy because I'm trying to appeal to my authority and you're trying to appeal to your authority. And we're not actually talking about the arguments anymore. You get what I'm saying?
Oh,
That's why it's a logical
I
fallacy.
The whole virtue signal, two people appealing to authority. No, my authority is more valid. No, my authority is more valid.
And look at what Trace just said here. He said distrust. He said, I'm not saying it's impossible. He's just saying the evidence doesn't prove that or lean that way yet. But this is what I'm saying. And this is where Trace agrees with us. He says distrust of Chinese government is totally warranted at this point. Dude, that's why I'm saying I think everyone's on the same page. The stories that are selling right now, as frustrating as it is to overcome and overwhelm some of the evidence that people are just willfully looking past, that is what we have to focus on right now. That is what we have to realize and recognize is currently happening is, dude, we are being led by narratives. We are being led by these archetypal things that are like you always Shine, that are like born into our DNA that we can't get rid of, dude. It's a little bit primal.
Humans understand things in story form, not fact form. They don't understand things as a list of facts. You view your whole world as a story. That's the way things go.
Man, and I think that's where people are hearing some of these stories of saying like, I don't know, man. Did it come from a wet market? Did it come from maybe a lab situation? I don't know. Either way, one thing I can rest assured on right now is that I can't really trust some of the numbers that are coming out. I can't really trust the Chinese government to tell me what's happening.
There must be a story about it. I just got a Timcast, Tim Pool. I just got a notification of one of his videos. It says it's official. China knew where the virus came from all along. I'll watch that and see if we can break that down a little bit. And Grant, we're probably doing better right now than we were doing the whole morning. I don't really want to shut down the show yet.
No, I got another couple stories to go, man. So,
well, do you mind if I throw one in there real quick? It kind of goes with this. I'm reading, by the way. I actually get a physical newspaper delivered to my house, and it is not the Knoxville News Sentinel because the Knoxville News Sentinel sucks. This is the Epic Times. It's excellent. It's out of New York and Atlanta. It's from a former Chinese national that moved to the United States in the 80s. They cover China better than anybody. Most of the staff speaks Chinese, and most of them are political refugees. But this is specifically applicable to you and I, Grant, but I imagine more people. Check this out. Millions of Americans using Zoom. Like me and you are using it right now to do this show. Right. But some of the data is being sent to China. Video conferencing at Zoom, which has surged in popularity amid the global CCP virus pandemic, is facing mounting privacy and security concerns after research reports and the CEO's disclosure revealed its encryption keys were being transmitted to servers in China in some cases. The backlash reached a crescendo recently, with Taiwan's recent banning of any government use of Zoom, citing security concerns. The April 7th measure marked the first time a government had imposed a formal action against the company. A similar picture is emerging. Experts told the Epic Times that concerns related to Zoom's alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party are absolutely warranted. And I just wanted to show that there is a crack in the trust. Hey, lean forward a little bit, Grant. It looks like you're just disappearing into space. Like all we could see was your little floating head.
Sorry, but
no, you're good. But the exposed cracks in trust in China, or even fear of China. Okay? I mean, we saw a few months ago that the NBA was willing to basically sacrifice all of its credibility in order to not lose any business in China. Now there are companies saying, if you have anything to do with China, we have a problem with that. And I don't know, because how many things are like Zoom? How many things are like Zoom? Where everybody uses it. What's another one that's that dating app? Tinder.
Tinder, yeah.
Did you know Tinder and Grindr? Not that I'm sure nobody uses Tinder or Grindr. Ew. But if you have, the Chinese government has your picture and your profile and all that stuff. That was made by the Chinese government to blackmail people. That's a real story. Look that up. That was made by a Chinese government deal. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that story out there. It seemed to go with it a little bit. And also, I recommend getting this. It's only like $17, and they send you like 6 papers a month, and they get it delivered straight to your house. I like a physical newspaper, but check it out. They cover the China stuff better than anybody. I mean, better than anybody. I'm going to start using more content from them. Especially when it relates to the virus. They call it the CCP virus. They don't call it the Wuhan virus.
That's probably the best way to say it, honestly.
The Chinese Communist Party virus. That's
well, and obviously one of the intentions they're drawing there is to say, like, look, even if you can't assert necessarily where it came from, specific locality is not necessary to assert blame for. There's a major problem for people not telling us about this.
It didn't come from Indiana. I know that.
Sorry, that's a good way to say it.
It didn't come from Wyoming.
It didn't come from Indiana yet.
Now, it could have come from Florida. I mean, jury's still out there. I mean, you know.
Poor Floridians. No, I hear you.
But it definitely didn't come from here. We could call it the non-American virus if people are worried. But I like the CCP virus because, like, go read that article, 6 Crucial Days. Just Google China 6 Crucial Days, and you'll see that there was time where they didn't do what was necessary that cost the world tens of thousands of lives. Tens of thousands of lives.
You were talking a second ago, man, about how, we're sort of unaware about how, China's following some of this stuff. And it's like, here's a great example. Okay. You were talking about Tinder. Goodness gracious, you can tell I know.
We're talking about Titter.
Yeah,
Twitter,
Tinder and
Grindr. Yeah,
well, and people are surprised that say even in this state, Governor Lee used tracking data of our location on cell phones to justify further extending stay-at-home orders. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, like, why does that surprise y'all? Like, how does that surprise y'all? You realize that we're voluntarily giving this information out again. Everything from Mr. Henry for some reason is falling on this line of voluntarily doing something for better or worse, right? You have to deal with the ramifications of your decisions if they're poor. You have to deal with them if they're good as well. If we do the right thing to mitigate these factors because the government did not tell us to do it, we now can take ownership of that. We can get it right. We don't need government. If, however, we're doing something wrong, we put this information out there and they're using it at their own discretion because we make it available for free because we chose to opt into this stuff. We can't then necessarily be surprised by some of the stuff that's coming on the back end, i.e., if you're using your phone, which I'm preaching to the choir here, buddy. Okay. I do this myself every single day. I mean, look, dude, I have 5 screens in front of me right now. Literally, I got a monitor over here, another computer, a work computer, 2 cell phones, a work cell phone as well. I got 5 or 6 screens in front of me. I'm preaching to the choir. But what I'm saying is, if you have location data turned on of Snapchat, Facebook, when you're using GPS, any of that stuff is available for private companies to pull for free because you've made it publicly available. Here's another one, buddy, okay? I was reading this story the other day. I should have this article pulled up. I'll find it in a second. About Bill Gates investing massive amounts of money into facial recognition technology in case they want to start using that in America. And initially, people are going to recoil at that, as I'm even feeling myself doing right now. Like, oh my gosh, you can't know. We would never allow that in America. We would never allow facial recognition technology like they have in China. Have you seen those protests, by the way, everyone, in China? All these people, thousands of people flooding the streets. If you want to know why there's those little green lasers everywhere, if you've seen these pictures, you can look up these videos up online.
Can't see my face.
There's little green laser pointers all over the place. It's because they're blotting out those facial recognition cameras. They are actively there in China, all over the place, everywhere, bro. And I'm starting to think to myself, like, hold on. Like 2/3.
Do you think that's why they all wear masks? That you think that's why they wear them, is to get around the facial recognition?
I didn't think about that, actually.
Do you think that's, and then they say it's to protect everybody because they're Asians and they're trying to seem honorable and it's part of their culture? But it's really like, hey, I look like everybody else because everybody has these eyes.
Everybody has these eyes. Everybody has
like
these,
well, you know what I'm saying? Like in America, if everybody was wearing masks, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between one person to another.
That's super interesting, dude. I don't know.
You know?
Right. Well, and let me say this way, Sean. Okay, so people are going to be asking then, okay, I get it, Mr. Henry. We give our location data out there for free. I put it on Facebook. I put it on Snapchat. When I'm taking pictures on my cell phone, I'll tag my location data. So when I upload it to my social media sites, people know where I am. I'll check myself in all the time voluntarily so my friends can see where I am. I get that. But when you say facial recognition technology, where are they getting that from? Dude, like 2/3 of the people in this country that are using cell phones, if not possibly more, are unlocking their cell phones now with their face. Are they not?
Right.
I mean, I have it on both of my phones.
Hey, let me just throw something out there. Why do you think Snapchat is free?
Right, dude. Right.
Why do you think Snapchat is free? Why do you think those fun features that capture your face and turn you into an animal from Apple or Facebook are free?
Yes.
It's because they're testing out facial recognition technology on you and wrapping it up with an animal balloon animal.
Literally.
Treating you like a 4-year-old, like dangling candy in front of you and said, will you please be a test subject for our technology, please?
Right.
That's what's happening.
That's exactly what's
happening. I mean, specifically Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat anymore. I stopped using it 2 years ago because you don't. It's like I used to worry about big companies in the United States. I'm not worried about them anymore. Half these freaking companies are owned by China.
Right.
I mean, Tinder and Grindr are just examples. There are others, and who knows how big of a stake or how big of influence China has in companies like Apple and Google and Amazon and Facebook and whatever. And I mean, just by what happened, just by everything we've been talking about with what happened with the NBA last year, you just never know. So I don't mess around and play with those apps that look at your face all the time and change your face.
Once I heard that Facebook bought out Snapchat for something like $2 billion, I'm pretty sure that's what it was, $2 billion with a B, billion dollars. I started thinking like, oh, all right, now I get it. So what started possibly as a fun toy from the developer now obviously has turned into exactly what Shine's talking about, is this massive experiment to say like, how much data can we get on people's face, right? Can we also plug that into our AI to maybe replicate some, I don't know, human tics, mannerisms, like these little facial tics that we have? Who knows? And then I started thinking back about stories where I think about the complicity. That's what Shine's talking about. You don't have to necessarily read too much into the understanding of how much is Facebook or Microsoft or anything quote unquote owned by the Chinese government. All you have to think is it's good business decision for them to work with China. That makes sense to everybody. That makes economic sense. There's not justifiable. What I'm saying is the reason why, or rather the reason that Facebook and Microsoft have given in the past for doing things like, look this up if you don't believe me, Microsoft is the one that led the technology to allow China to shut down websites from its users. All right. Facebook is the one that's leading the technology, or at least being complicit in some of this technology for China to implement some of these social credit scores. And this is what I'm saying. It's good business for them, y'all. There's 2 billion people over there, man. They expand their marketplace to things that they could never have access to otherwise. Again, this is not a justified reason to do this. I'm saying this is the reason why these businesses are going into it. This is what Shine's talking about. It's the complicity to work with the Chinese Communist government to make this happen. They're getting massive amounts of money out of it, y'all. You don't have to be owned by the Chinese government to understand that some of this stuff is happening because it's we're seeing it there. It's being widely reported on. So when you're using your face to unlock your phone like that, I see. And here's the problem, bro, is this train has left the station. I don't know how you get that back.
Yep, the train has left the station.
It's gone. Right now we're just sort of like harping on it and venting on it. I'm not sure
at this point you can only regulate like with metadata. You can only regulate how people use it, and how it's stored and how it's shared from one legal entity to another legal entity. But you cannot stop the capturing of faces now. Dude, like you can't make something that everyone has in their house illegal. You know what I'm saying? It's something like that. It's too widespread. It'd be unenforceable. If you made it a law, then it would undermine the authority of the state because it wouldn't be enforceable. By the way, Trace Henry says some facial recognition algorithms apparently are still effective when wearing masks.
Well, in my opinion,
the technology wouldn't be useful if it couldn't. So I appreciate that, Trace, but
that's crazy, dude. The article he links is, I'm reading this right now, how China built facial recognition for people wearing masks. Hong Wang says that its technology is 95% accurate in identifying people that are still wearing masks. Get out of here, buddy.
You know, this is what I'm wondering, like who's the kid who's like a graduate student who says, you know what I want to do? You know, with my high IQ and my resources, and I want to help the government track people's faces. That's what I want to do with my engineering skill. That's what I want to do with my time. That's how I'm going to change the world. I want it to be more authoritarian. Who does that?
I see, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if this piece of technology start off with novel purposes,
I doubt it.
maybe even noble, and maybe they don't, dude. But I would maybe I'm trying to get myself in the mind of the Snapchat person. Okay, when he went out there, I don't know if he was necessarily thinking like, cool, this could be an awesome thing to give data to the military-industrial complex to maybe do some type of imposition of martial law or to track our folks during a COVID-19 outbreak. I don't know, man. Maybe he was trying to develop a fun toy because the technology was out there and it was available, and then all of a sudden it became co-opted and perverted into something entirely different. I don't know, but I think I hear what you're saying, man. Is it's like how do you here's the beautiful thing about technology also, man, is like this telescopic evolution that we have of technology. It's only getting faster. It's only speeding up. Not only has the train left the station already, buddy, like it's continuing to go faster and faster and faster every single day, every single minute, every single second, buddy. It's doubling on itself and then doubling on itself again. So not only can we not get it back, it's going faster than it ever has before, and will only go faster on an exponential curve to go faster. And somehow, man, you got to be able to root out, dare I say, the evil elements. I don't know, man. And I don't know other way to put it. The evil elements, the elements that would want to say, take something from that, because this whole creation of technology was meant to be this beautiful thing of interconnectivity, right? Of the collective consciousness coming together and sharing human stories and sharing experiences and growing with each other and progressing. And dude, I remember one of the best podcasts I think you and I ever did, man, was this very conversation where I played that clip from A Waking Life. And this guy was talking about how the progression could be used literally as an evolution in mankind, that the technology could give us this idea of rooting off the old analog man and taking on some of the new digital man. What he means by that is we could actually specifically categorize the things that we like to see in humanity: nobility, truth, virtue, right? Altruism. Okay. We could specifically program this stuff into technology and get rid of parasitism and dominance and fear and stuff like that. We could program this stuff in, right? If that was the original intention of some of this technology, how in the world did we get here now? And I only was saying this, dude. Maybe the solution to all of it is what Sherry just said in Facebook. Wear a Batman mask, dude. Just wear a Batman mask and you'll be all right, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's tough, man. I don't know what you do about the even though I feel like when I was younger, you know, the post 9/11 days, when I was first getting into politics and worried about the authoritarianism from the state or otherwise, I really thought things would be more authoritarian by 2020.
I did too.
Than they are now. So maybe I'll just keep being surprised. That's my hope. But as we talk about technology, I wanted to do a little bit of a PSA. Sorry about that. Just dropped something. But talk to your older friends, family members. Right now, scamming is at an all-time high for everything from fake companies calling older people and asking them to make medical donations or money to help with things, to selling fake tests to older people. So check on your older folks and let them know about all the scamming going on, and tell them not to be taken advantage of. Maybe even have if anybody calls like that, you know, you double check for them, you know, by Googling it or something, and make sure it's a real organization.
Yeah, man.
But while we were talking about technology, I wanted to do that little PSA. I did that with my grandparents yesterday. I called them and said, hey, by the way, don't give anybody any money right now unless you know them really well. Probably just give it to your church.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
let them distribute it. And but definitely, as bad as it normally is, it's 10 times worse now. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Because they know obviously people can exploit that fear. That's what I'm talking about, man. And to finish up the show, some of the notes that I put together here in the show notes, you can see it at the top there. ABC's reporting on the significant updates from the developments of Trump's task force. Yesterday, we went through a few of these. Obviously, talking today, Trump will release the reopening guidelines after his conversation with governors. He also went on to say the governors will be responsible for critical testing, not the federal government. That's where I said before, I think that's Tennessee is hitting the mark right on the head here. We started the show by reporting on the fact that in Tennessee, by the way, that link up there at the top of the show notes that you see, if this is pertinent to you at all, or anybody you know, That link up there at the top of the show notes, what I'm finding right now, there, it's the third thing down. It says Governor Lee announces aggressive statewide COVID-19 testing. That link actually has a full chart of every single physical location that's doing the free drive-through testing and the dates and times that they're doing the drive-through testing. Now, in rural counties, it doesn't matter. 5 days a week, you can get free testing. And it's also drive-through testing, and regardless of your symptoms. Some other stuff I want to bring up here. We talked about, let's see, we passed the point of peak new cases, Trump says. He also threatened unilateral adjournment of Congress, which is just awesome, primarily because his nominees aren't going through. They're stalling, and his appointments for some of his office positions aren't going through. They're just stalling, so he needs to get that done. And one of my favorite stories that's come out so far, buddy, ABC's reporting a quote-unquote unprecedented move for Trump to print his name on the coronavirus relief checks. Sorry, I can't even finish that without laughing. Trump printing his name on the coronavirus relief checks. And let me say this right now.
This story is hilarious. They're like, it's not fair that even though Donald Trump is president, that people should be able to assign the fact they're getting money to him. They shouldn't be able to say, oh, man, this is my Trump check. That's what they're worried about. They don't want him getting any credit for giving people money because they know that that's how they've been getting votes for 100 years. Right. Is paying people off. And they just don't like that someone else is getting in on that business. Sorry.
This is what I'm saying, man. When Sean and I go on some of this stuff, like yesterday's a perfect example of this show of what I'm about to say. Okay, so yesterday we went into this whole rant about how you may not like what Trump says, you may not agree with what Trump says, but at a minimum you have to agree that he's a master manipulator of the media. And I want to say that there probably was at least a single person that watched that show and listened or heard me say that and thought, no, he's not. This is a little bit of what I'm talking about, bro. Okay, Trump always sees an opportunity, and as ridiculous and as silly and as bombastic and sophomoric as it might sound to you, for Trump to print his name on a relief check, he sees as an opportunity of, oh, I can't campaign right now, but these task force hearings are kind of like my ability to have a campaign speech all the time. I'm oddly enough setting up this sort of impromptu style sort of presidential debate between me and this Cuomo guy over here in New York. Why don't I use this as another opportunity to get my name out there? Probably the way that Shine just said. And it's infuriating the media and infuriating the other side of the party so much so that it's an unprecedented move. Now, whether I personally agree with that or not, who knows? I've always been this guy, Shine, and a lot of people don't like me for this. I've always been this guy that thinks that a certain amount of reverence and piety is owed to that office. And I personally think that Trump's Twitter account, remember this dude from the day one of Real News, when we were interviewed by that local television program back in the day, from day one, I said, and I still kind of hold to this, that I thought one of the best things Trump could have done for the sake of the office is to delete his personal Twitter account. Now, I realize, dude, that's a tough thing to stick by. So understand where I'm coming from. I don't necessarily like this move, but the fact that I cannot say that it's ineffective should show you everything. The fact that I don't think that Trump should have a personal Twitter account, but I can look at a move like this and say, I don't like it, but dude, come on, man. That's a move of a move right there, bro. That's a left stick juke move right there for a touchdown, man. Is it not? Oh my gosh. Got to end the show
Give
right
him
now.
6. That's so funny. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Hey, tomorrow we'll have more great stuff at 10 a.m. Today's Thursday, right? It's not Friday?
That's right.
I can't ever remember what day it is anymore because I'm stuck in this house all the time. But hey, stay tuned to the Real News Facebook. We'll keep you. We add articles all the time, add all kinds of stuff, and the daily show Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. But Grant, why don't you go ahead and take us out when you're ready?
Yes, sir. Real News signing off for today. One last thing at the very top of the show notes here. Help us fight that Nashville property tax. We would absolutely love to do it. Help us join this community if you want to help us grow. That's one of the ways you can do it. Take action right now. Helps us get you back later on. My name is Mr. Henry for David Shine Thompson. Signing off. Real News. See you tomorrow.